Call the meeting to order. And let's see.
I've got a few announcements. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Robert Steinbrock, the liaison for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for this March meeting. We want to remind the people on Zoom meeting that the meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is supposed to be disabled. All chats will go directly to me, the meeting host. Unless you are participating during this meeting, please turn off your video. This allows the active meeting participants to be seen on the screen. You'll still be able to hear the meeting. When you are participating, please turn on your video. If you have any trouble, please send a message in the chat and we'll try to figure it out for you. The city reserves the right to mute people or individuals' videos off to the off screen of minimizing distractions during the meetings. Also a note on public comment. When it comes for public comment, individuals attending in person should approach this area or just raise your hand. We'll get you up here to indicate you wish to speak. And then we'll get you speaking, and then we'll go to the Zoom. If you do the raise hand function, we'll get you settled and called on by name, and then you can turn on your video and then present your comments. Please state your name before speaking. All comments are limited to 3 minutes during public comment. And so I'll turn it back over to the chair, John Navanian.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is to approve minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, and let's approve them separately. So January 9th meeting minutes, is there a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve the January minutes.
Is there a second?
Second, Marilyn Hill, board member.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the January 9th minutes. Are there any comments? All in favor, raise your hand or indicate with a yell or scream. Something. That's good. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, how about a motion for the February 13th minutes?
I will make a motion to approve February 13th minutes.
Very reliable. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded.
For the second, thank you.
To approve the advisory board minutes of February 13th. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Everybody opposed? Okay. So next item is public comment, and I think we have one person.
I do.
Right?
Or I am one. All right. Yep. Name is James Greason. I am a baseball coach / dad and member of the community. I start off with why not baseball? I started off every single time. One, I want to say thanks for the work that's been done. From the list I gave last year, a good majority have been done. So that's a great start. Now we just got to maintain it throughout the season and let's not get it back to where it was. There's still a couple little safety things. The mounds at Holcomb need to be addressed. There's still big potholes and stuff. If we can make them look like YSC, I'll be a happy guy. Those look absolutely fantastic and look exactly the way they should be. So I think that we took care of the fence, which is awesome because if we have a pass ball now, the fans are not getting hurt. So that's good. We did some good. One that has been brought up by a lot of people is a rental of the field. We have now, for a second, if we decide to have a second practice, we pay $27 for a field or $37 if we want lights. That prices go up. I get it. But that being said, why will the weekend field not be dressed? If I pay $27 for the week and I know that it was dressed during the week, I would expect to pay the same amount of money on a weekend and have it dressed. I don't think I should show up and flip a coin to find out if the field's usable. If I pay the money, I want the field. So, however, somebody needs to go out there and give a thumbs up, thumbs down, or however, or it should not be the same price as getting it during the week when it's dressed. So the person that's going to be out there that I like a better term, I call security. I noticed that the thing that was sent out was we are not going to do AEDs again. I still think that's a bad mistake. Clearly, after what's happened in the last couple months, that's the deal. The person that's out there, I know that they said there's no training or whatever, but the person that's out there that's representing Parks and Rec can be trained on it. Like, do we know, are they trained by CPR? Do they have basic health? I don't know. Luckily, multiple parents on my team are, and a couple of them are doctors. So I'm not worried about my team, but what about the rest? And in there it says that we just need to call the police department or whatever, or the ambulance. Well, if they take 5 minutes, 5 minutes can be too long. Yeah. So the other one is when they're there, they need to be there every single time. They need to introduce themselves to the coaches, introduce themselves to the umpires, and let us know that they're walking around. Still to this day, there's multiple coaches that have never heard that a representative from Parks and Rec is actually out there. So that email needs to go out, and we all need to know that a representative is at every single game. Baseball's in bad shape. We've had multiple teams leave for Kansas City or Topeka or become tournament teams, which means that we have less competition. And it's just killing it. And part of it is because of all the stuff I've been bringing up for the last year. A couple other ones. I don't understand why kickball gets to use the baseball fields when we have the Lions, Hobbs, Holcomb North, the two softball. Why are we pulling mounds off the baseball field so kickball can use it? I just think that's a little strange when there's other places. And then
You need to.
yeah, I got one last one. We sent out, or not we, I got an email from Dick's Sporting Goods for a 20% off coupon.
Right.
Okay. That 20% for coupon, we got nothing out of. We did the work for them and we got nothing in return. If I was a company and I put out a mailer, mailers are worth money. We should have got 5% of that coupon and the government should have, or the general public should have got 15. We talk about money all the time. We just did them a huge freebie. That's money we just threw away. So that needs to get better as well. Yeah, and I'll for another long list.
Why didn't you write something up in your questions?
So here's the thing. Can I continue just a little bit longer?
Sure.
If I write up the list, I did a large presentation that lasted 45 minutes or an hour or something like that months ago. The general public doesn't get that. So the people who actually do the voting and different things don't get to hear what I say. So I did a 45-minute presentation with like 20 slides, and the only people that seen it are some people sitting at this table. And I don't think that's right.
Okay.
Because the complaints aren't getting out there. The people that really matter are the ones that are sitting on here that listen and hopefully join me here and continue this process.
Yeah, except these are the guys who take care of it. Okay.
I understand.
So one thing you can do, James, similar to what the city commission does, sometimes if you have a lot of comments, a lot of things, do a written response and send it in as public comment, and then we can post it. That way everybody on the board, if you start getting tight on time, can read everything that you've got.
Okay. Okay.
So you can do both. Just
Okay. Okay, and then I can, with slide one, we can share it.
I would give it to the board. Not necessarily you wouldn't be able to present it.
Okay.
It could be provided to them.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's move now to the regular agenda, and we need to switch out item 2 and item 1, just reverse the order there. But my understanding is we need a motion to do that. Okay.
Jackie Becker, I motion to move number 2, the winter emergency shelter at the health community report.
Okay, there's a second.
Marilyn Hall, second.
Okay.
It's probably on there.
Okay, been moved and seconded to switch. All those in favor, raise your hand or otherwise indicate. Any opposition? Okay, let's do that. So Mitch?
First of all, thank you. Yeah, Mitch Young, Parks and Recreation. I also have the dotted line position with PDS, which you're all aware of. I'd like to say that we had another successful year at the Winter Mercy Shelter. We did 3,900 stays, about 187 volunteers, and about a little less than 1,000 hours on that. So there was a big impact in our community. We, as you all are aware, different from last year, we did a consecutive 101 nights instead of doing anything below a certain temperature. I don't really have a lot to report except as we had a great success and the building is returned in the condition we found it. So, well, PDS would like to thank Derek and Roger for their support of the program. Roger put in a lot of time on different things and Derek volunteered, but we did have that. We don't plan on being there next year. We don't plan on being there next year. I think this is our final year in this community building. Could that change? Very possible. I'm sure you read in the paper, we partnered with LCF, and tonight will be their first night.
Oh.
So that building was established for 125 beds and there's 125 beds in there today.
Okay, so you guys are helping out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we had.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We had to support different departments, Park and Rec, of course, MSO pulled together last week, and we went out and made it possible to get that. They haven't been at that capacity in a long time. A lot of bids were in storage. We had to do little privacy issues, things like that. They're going to run their program a little different than we did. But for the most part, it's going to be about the same. We took the site boxes were gone this morning. We closed our program at 7 this morning, and at 7:05, the truck driver was there ready to move. So it was a little ahead of schedule, but we got to move. And but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has on the Winter Mercy Shelter.
If there's no questions on WS, can you, since you're involved somewhat in the campsite and the pallet?
So the support site, which is in North Lawrence, we recently brought in one of the support trailers that we had at Camp Woody that was purchased with CARES funds. We currently have it set up. Is it tied into infrastructure? No. We're having to have a honey truck come every 2 or 3 days to pump that trailer out. But for the most part, we're seeing some good usage out of it. We have people that were at the Winter Mercy Shelter saying they're not going to go to Lawrence Community Shelter tonight, which is just a choice. Everybody has choices in life. So that we did have 4 people today that got tents at a sports site. We're going to stay at the one location. There was two up there. There was an upper and a lower. We're going to stay in the lower. And if that fills up, then we'll have to address it from there. But at this point, we're sticking with those 51 sites there at the bottom. And there's some people that are couples, so sometimes there's more people, but the tents. And then, of course, you've also read in paper about the pallets. We are moving forward with that, and location unknown at this point, but we're putting together a plan with the pallets as well. And that's where possibly these trailers will go. Then that's when the support site will possibly close down when we get the pallets open. So there'll be options there as well. We have the 2 trailers, and we have the laundry trailer. There's a lot of misconception that laundry is in each one of those trailers, and it's not. We can bring the laundry trailer over there. There's just not enough infrastructure to do it. And Bear Center offers laundry, and so does LCS. So there are some laundry options. And there's a very nice one, Kathy, that volunteers over North Lawrence that brings in or picks up laundry almost every night.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of volunteers over there as well. So we haven't quite got it staffed 24/7. We're close. With some of the staff that we had here at the CD, which were Park and Rec employees, part-time employees, they've expressed interest. So starting tonight, we have some of the CD staff working over there as well.
Questions, comments?
Is Parks and Rec underwriting those salaries for that Parks and Rec staff people?
That's all paid by people, Planning Developmental Services, which is the Housing Initiative Division. So yeah, when we do payroll, they have 20 hours with Park and Rec and 10 hours with PDS.
Jackie Becker. I know you said you hope to not have it next year, so that's the city taking a lead and saying we don't want to use the community building?
We don't need to use the community buildings in a perfect world. The expansion of LCS, out housing, I believe maybe another campsite by the application should possibly, if they have a follow-on, they've talked about June being the end of this campsite if they have a pallet village and
Yeah, if everything's in place. At this point, we're not closing the support site. It's when other options become available. Other options become available.
I guess I'm just when you opened, you said had a great, experience and I just wondered how do you define that? What made it feel better?
Well, we didn't lose anybody.
Yeah. Okay.
That was sad right there. Nobody froze it out. Unfortunately, we had one gentleman who was not at the winter emergency shelter, but he lost a few toes from frostbite. And we had another gentleman that spent a couple nights in the hospital trying to get over frostbite, but he didn't lose any toes or fingers. So that's a success.
And it sounds like people there considered it a success too.
I believe so. We got a nice card. We were last night. Cicely, who's one of my partners. Co-workers, we got a nice card from a woman that she thanked us. She said, didn't want to be here, but I was glad it was available as an option to me.
Who would have thought that Parks and Rec would be the one, to be so important in this whole thing. And, your flexibility in going beyond established boundaries to deal with the problems that need to be solved rather than maintaining boundaries.
One team, one city.
Really appreciate it.
I would say it's the leadership of the city commission. Parks and Rec was heavily involved. MSO and PDS. PDS became more so as they took on the housing initiatives. But we felt more of the stress than maybe some of the other departments just trying to do everything we're trying to do and take a facility like the community building that would have been light use as a recreation center to heavy use for 24 hours. And so we would have redone we'll be working on the court starting this week and getting refinished and getting ready for spring. But that facility has seen heavy use like it hadn't seen, I would say even more so than last year because we did the temperatures where we did it every night. And so volunteered Saturday night. And I'm just looking at how many people are utilizing that facility and using the restrooms, whereas, in a basketball game or something, maybe 2 or 3 light uses versus heavy use.
Yeah. Putting on my academic hat here, I think what would really, really be interesting is if you ask the people who had work exposure, what'd you learn? What'd you learn about yourself? What'd you learn about homelessness? And if we could compile that into a little diary thing and then publish it on your professional, Parks and Rec Association website, I think it'd be really cool. Anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like a good hot wash item for the homeless initiatives team to follow up on.
Sounds accepted.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you all. Thank you.
Next, we have Dan Partridge, who is the director of the Lawrence Douglas County Health Department. And when you think about Parks and Rec and you think about public health, it just seems so logical, right? And yet structurally, they're there, we're here, So let's hear from Dan. Maybe at some point think about formal connections we might be able to make.
Thank you, John. Listening to the previous conversation, I can't help but think of a definition of what public health is that it's always strongly resonated with me. And that is that public health is what we as a society do to assure that conditions exist for all to be healthy. And we just heard a fantastic story about what your staff have done to help assure that people can be healthy in this community. So you're very much a public health partner. And Roger reminded me, one of the very first partners that we reached out to after COVID on our doorstep was Parks and Rec, to say, well, here are things we're asking you to close. And there was a time in there where there were daily calls going on, sometimes more than one. So very much appreciate the solidarity and public health that you guys have done for us. Let's do this. Let's see here. I think maybe I'll hit the no. I'm not sure what I did differently there. So let me start with a couple of commercials on what Lawrence County Public Health Department is all about. We've recently adopted a new vision and mission statement, and so you have them there. We also have a new logo for us, part of our branding campaign of probably 3 or 4 years ago now. Our new vision is leading change to advance health for all. That speaks to a couple of concepts. Number one, it's around health equity and the bullseye that we have around our work around that. It's about achieving health equity. And I see in the commitments for the Lawrence strategic plan that equity is among them. So that's one connection. I think as we walk through some of the data I'll present, I think all of this connects to many of the outcomes of the strategic plan for the city of Lawrence. There are multiple connections to the work of not just Parks and Rec, but the city of Lawrence in your strategic plan. And then our mission, of course, is creating abundant and equitable opportunities for good health. And I want to start with a little primer on what public health science would say, what is the work of advancing health for all. And this logo, kind of, I don't know what it evokes for people, but we chose it in part because those arcs represent ripples in a pond. When we throw a rock in a pond, we create ripples that reach out and they continue on and they intersect with others. And that to us evokes that interconnected nature, not only of what health means for people, but how the work of health happens in our communities. And so these foundations of health that we used to call social determinants of health, but public marketing people have said, don't use that word, use foundations of health. They're really 4. A couple that are very, probably where the most of the effect happens, and that's around social and economic status. And what is that? That's the social connectedness that we enjoy or don't enjoy, the family support that we have, the job status that we have, our income, our education, what's our social and economic place in our society. And the more that you have, the more access to better health that you have. And the less advantages or privileges that you have, the harder it is to achieve good health. So that's the very first foundation of health. The second would be health behaviors. There's 2 facets of what drives health: are the community that we live in and how it influences our behaviors, and then the behaviors that we have. And so some examples of health behaviors that we try to work on: diet and exercise, tobacco use, alcohol use, risky sex. Those are listed in part because those are things that we are concretely and specifically working on at the Public Health Department, but there are, of course, many, many other behaviors that influence health along the way. Those 2 there represent probably 75-80% of what determines your health outcome. There are a couple of others. Healthcare, that's, do you have health insurance? Do you have access to quality care? Do you have access to behavioral health care? And, there's been so much work done in this community around destigmatizing mental illness, behavioral health, and connecting, so that when a person goes to see a healthcare provider, they by extension are getting linked to and connected to mental health, behavioral health resources and providers. And then the last one is our physical environment. And that's another place where Parks and Rec comes into play. The green space that we're looking out the windows at, that's an example of how our physical environment either motivates and encourages good physical activity and good behavior and that social connectedness that happens when you gather at the playground equipment on a Sunday morning and other things. And then having a walkable neighborhood. One of our very first initiatives, probably over a decade ago, Marilyn, I think of you and when you were at the Community Foundation, we worked to get complete streets adopted as a policy for the city of Lawrence. That's an effort to create more walkable neighborhoods, an effort to create places to walk to. And then housing, of course, that's what we just heard about. Housing is as we'll learn about later, one of the big challenges to health in this community. So that's really what we're trying to do when we try to assure that the conditions exist for people to be healthy. And what I wanted to do now, because part of the ask I had was tell us about our community. And so I wanted to do that through a tool that all of you can use. And I think this is just an awesome place. And I don't know that many people know about it. I mean, why would you really? You've got to be a geek to find it. But this is a public health website that really connects to every community in the United States of over 50,000. So every city that's of that size or greater is in this dashboard. And so cityhealthdashboard.com is where you'd go. And they've got it broken down. So it is what it says. It isn't the dashboard. So what's one of their dashboards? What are the social and economic factors that exist in communities? And so this is kind of their landing page for social and economic factors. And see, they've got about a dozen things there that they're reporting on across the entire country, hundreds of cities. And I picked out a couple that, just if you looked at the overall averages, you'd say, oh, children in poverty, that seems like an important thing to care about. And oh, look, we're doing well. When you see the green check mark, that's the side of the spectrum that's good. And so the triangle, it would be the average across the entire database. And then the bar that you see on each continuum is where Lawrence sits on that. So that's how you read these graphs. So children in poverty were, better than average, looks good. Credit insecurity, better than average, but let's look at those things a little bit deeper. So when you look at credit insecurity, and you click on that in the dashboard, it'll take you to a metric-specific page where it'll show you the city based on the census tracts. And what really stands out to me is the average says we're doing okay, credit insecurity, but you look at this and you say, oh, on West Lawrence, we have a score of 9.7. On East Lawrence, or really middle of this town where we are here, 69.7. Then you look at that continuum bar, and the very worst score you can get and the very best score you can get in the entire nation lie right here in Lawrence, a few blocks apart. So that's, to me, speaks to how we have to really dig into a more granular look at what our city looks like and not just look at our average. Our average would say, move on, credit insecurity, i.e. income security or insecurity, we're doing okay. No, we have a problem in certain areas. So if you look at children in poverty, you see this very same thing in the very same East-West dichotomy. You see, on average, we're doing well, but again, not quite to the far extreme, but in West Lawrence, 2.1 score, East Lawrence, 46.9, which is almost to the 47. And that's a 20-fold plus difference just across town. So if there's anything I would hope that you take away from this other than how public health is into everything. It's that you have to look at the details and look at neighborhoods and not just the city. So health behaviors was that other big piece that of those foundations of health that I talked about. And digging into really just one here because I wanted to preserve a little time and I have a lot of slides, I'm sorry. So binge drinking, that's one. You look at that and you say, we're not doing so great. And well, we're a college town, let's move on. Binge drinking, if you were to look at the city map, it's a problem everywhere. Now, true, students are everywhere in our community. They're not just near campus. But binge drinking happens not just with college kids. When we look at that data, it's in 35-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 45-year-olds. I think it is a problem that we should pay more attention to in this community. And then when we look at smoking, there's been a lot of work and a lot of great work. And our smoking rates were better than average. And we have done a lot of great things, the tobacco-free park. I remember celebrating that a few years ago here. But we still see a twofold difference in smoking rates from East to West Lawrence. So still work to do. If there's anything, I think, what can Parks and Rec do for East Lawrence? So the foundations of health aren't necessarily health itself. But we're saying there are connections. You have social and economic factors working for you. You're going to have odds are you'll have better health. If you've got good health behaviors, odds are you'll have better health. But what is our health? So there's a dashboard on what are our health outcomes. And I pulled out probably too many, but I would say frequent mental distress. That's one that we talk about a lot in this community, and we're not doing as well as the average of our community or our country. So for good reason, I think we're pointing our attention, putting our attention there. Frequent physical distress, that's a number where you see relatively well. Either that or the country's in bad shape. It's pretty close to the far end of that continuum of people reporting 10 or more days of poor physical health in the last 30 days. But I wanted to also throw out the COVID risk, not to just say, point the finger at public health, but that was a community response. This community tackled COVID head on, and we knocked it out of the park. So thank you, Parks and Rec. I know it was not easy to follow a lot of the advice, but I very much appreciate, the work you did pushing that plow down the field with us. But I did want to throw out one, I think I've got one here on obesity. Overall, you can see we're fairly, in good shape on the national continuum. But again, we see that east-west difference, not quite as severe as in others. But I pointed out really just to say one more time, we have this east-west dichotomy in our health foundations of health and our health outcomes. And then there's one kind of the big litmus test of health, and that's how long are we living? And so that's one of the metrics on the dashboard. So what you see there, overall, we're better than average for our community or our nation at 80.3. But you see a difference between West and East Lawrence. And where we saw poor behaviors or social economic status, we see lower health expectancy. For me, this is the proof of the theory or that these things are connected to health and that we need to pay attention to housing and income and job opportunities and recreational activities if we're going to move the needle on health. And I wanted to also kind of spend a few minutes on another source of data that you can go to, and that's the health equity reports that we put out at the health department. So if you go to ldchealth.org, you'll see that kind of front and center, a link to go to our health equity reports. And we've issued 2 now, and our commitment is that every 2-3 year cycle, we will push out new numbers. So we've got 2 reports under our belt, and I just wanted to pull from some of the data from that report. So this is looking at poverty trends across Douglas County and Lawrence by different racial and ethnic populations. And what you see is in 2018 and with our first ECHO report versus 2021 with our second, several of these poverty rates are increasing. When you look at African American, Black, when you look at Native American, multiracial, you see all of those poverty rates are going up. There is a bit of good news in our Asian rates and our Hispanic rates are going down, but still, economic progress, economic security is not equally distributed in our community. And that is probably the most powerful predictor of future health. I threw in homelessness because I know it's so much the new part of your work. And this is from our very first health equity report, where we looked at who's using our community homeless shelter. And you'll see the blue bar represents the proportion of the population of each of those racial groups. And then the black bar is, who's at the shelter. Excuse me, I got that wrong. Black is percent of the population. Blue is showing up at the shelter. So you see overly represented by people of color. One last slide on housing, and that's to point out a couple of things. The systemic nature of some of these challenges that we have. They've been baked into our community, our institutions, our systems for decades, and they'll take decades to unravel. These aren't easy things to address because where do you go? Who can you point to and say you did this or you can change it? It's a very diffuse issue, but it has very tangible roots. When we look at housing in our city, back in the 60s, City of Lawrence, part of the work they did was survey all of the housing stock in the community and say, where's the problem housing? And that's the blue shaded area. So very much a North Lawrence, inner city, middle of the city, problem housing area. Concurrent in that same genre of time, realtors in the community had this map on the right that says, oh, when a person of color shows up and wants to be shown a house, here's where you show them a house. So we were identifying this housing problem and funneling a certain portion of our population that looked different from most of us here to those areas. So that intention is still with us today. And it's part of what I think we have to recognize it and commit to peeling back that onion of systemic racism. So we showed a slide around life expectancy, and we showed the just by geography, but I wanted to also show it by the race and ethnicity dimensions as well. So, between our first report and 2021, when we updated the numbers, we increased our life expectancy by almost a year, which really bucked the national trend of lower life expectancy. But it's not 80.7 across our community. You lived in East Lawrence, it's 75.4. If you live in rural Douglas County, it's 85. You get a 10-year bump just by the place you live. And then if that newborn infant is a person of color, she can expect or he can expect to live 7 years less than if they lived out, by where I live. That is up, so there is some good news, but we have a lot of work to do. And, the mission and vision of the health department is really about health equity, and the metric that we most hope to see change over the decades is that this life expectancy number goes to zero across any disaggregated way we split it out. Likewise with all of the foundations of health and health outcomes, because it starts with moving the needle upstream with those things.
Did you say that life expectation goes to zero?
No, the difference is.
Oh, okay.
No, that would be a bad goal. No. Thank you for if I said that wrong. So real quickly, before I go to some of the community health assessment, community health planning work that we're right in the middle of. Another place you can go to check for progress is our Healthier Together dashboard, and it's ldchealth.org/healthier together. So those are three sources that I encourage you to take a look at somewhere down the line. So as I said, we're in the middle of our community health assessment, community health planning process. It's at every 5-year cycle. So we're now on our third iteration of this. So we're wrapping up our third community health assessment and getting ready to do some public feedback, soliciting opinions from our community on what should our priorities be. And I wanted to take us back, though, to the cycle that we are just leaving. So 5 years ago with the community health assessment, part of what we do is we survey our community. So this survey is probably about 2,000 people took it 5 years ago. And we asked them, there's a list of about 40 issues like housing and criminal justice and other things. How important is it? How well are we doing? Those are the dimensions that we ask around those 40 issues. And when people saw it as important and said that we were doing well, that was a strength. And if they said, this is an important issue and we're not doing well, that would be a weakness or a challenge. Problem, I guess, is why I put it there. So what we did was say, okay, we know that if we just look at the average, we're missing part of the story. So what do we see when we disaggregate those 1,000, 2,000 samples by race, ethnicity, geography? Pretty much any way we ask a demographic question, we would tear it apart. And then where do people see the same question differently? I.e., some see it as a strength, others as a problem. And it's to me very telling that there were 5 questions that happened in 2017. That our community has a fair criminal justice system, that people are free from violence and the threat of violence, that people are treated fairly and without discrimination, people not experience hunger, and that healthy food is available and affordable. And I'm going to dig into these first 3 because I think those are pressing problems that you listen to any public government conversation or reporting of it, these things are coming up. And what you would see there is pretty clear, at least to me, that people of color see this differently than people in the majority do. So what I did for you here was say, okay, let's take a look at those first 3 questions and say, how did things change in 5 years? And so in 2017, we have a fair criminal justice system. Baldwin, Lequompton, people making $75,000 or more saw it as a strength. Our Black and low-income people said, no, it's a weakness, it's a problem. In 2022, you see that no one saw it as a strength. And you see that the list of groups who saw it as a weakness has just grown greatly. Not just Black and African Americans now, but our Hispanics, our people without health insurance, even some with some college. So it has become a wider held view that our criminal justice system needs work. And so my prompting questions for you are, because part of what we believe at the health department is we need to change policy, not just at a city commission level, but at every organization. And so as you look at or get asked to weigh in on policies that Parks and Rec has, what are your, what's your lens to say, oh, we're calling police too quickly or we're not calling them quickly enough? Are we being sensitive to the people we're trying to serve? I know for us at the health department, we've had a big spike of people coming in, acting out, threatening people, causing commotion. And it's really caused us to, because a lot of staff want to just push the panic button and call the police and we're trying to say, no, that's not the first thing we do. You know, what can we do before we get to that point? And it's been tough, hard work for us that we're not finished with. And I would imagine because you deal with so many more people than we do, you have your share of stories of people that you're wrestling with the question, do I call police or do I try to manage this in a different way? How do I balance safety concerns and for the public, for that person, for me, my staff, you know, the whole gamut. And so I think there are policy questions, and I would hope that these are things that are tracked and you're monitoring for Parks and Rec.
Dan, I think we need to wrap.
Okay, so I'll few more then. So threats of violence, again, one of your policies related to safety. What you see is the same story. No one saw it as a strength this go around, and a few more people saw it as weakness. Treated fairly and without discrimination. Actually, somewhat, you could say a little bit of a mixed bag. Certainly not the step backwards of the other two. I talked about we're moving to public meetings. Please, we'll push out to Roger and all of our community partners opportunities to come and weigh in and talk to us about what the issues need to be for our next community health plan. And I'll wrap it up there.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Really, very thought-provoking kinds of things. Questions for Dan or comments on what we've heard?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well done.
And I will, if it's okay, I'm going to send out your presentation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll send it out to you folks so that you can. I saw some people writing, and I was like,
Jackie Becker, I do have a question because you were showing the slides and you didn't talk about like healthy foods and things like that. Do you have a slide for that? Or can you quickly expand on 2017 to 2022?
Mm-hmm. No, not in this slide deck. I was, believe it or not, trying to hold it down, but foods is one where it's been in our community health plan for 2 cycles. I imagine it'll continue to stay there, but it's one where we've seen a lot of gains. It's kind of maybe my nature to point at the things where we need more improvement on than where. And certainly go to Healthier Together and you'll see more.
I know the space from which you're talking about, Jackie, too.
Let's see. Who has a hand up? Yeah.
You want me to minimize this? How do I?
Yeah.
Not here.
The red button right below that.
Yeah, the red button.
There you go. JT.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, in about the year 2008, I found myself in the trauma unit at KU. If you're in the trauma unit at KU Med, they come and check your vitals at least every 4 hours. And I keep getting the same puzzle question again. Stuff. Nothing, because under physical environment, you've got walkable neighborhoods, green space and housing, but there's no mention of bikeable neighborhoods. Even the word bike mentioned once.
I can't draw a specific reference to.
Okay.
the fee. And whether or not if you have any from a budget perspective, but also maintain as much access as possible.
Yeah.
Voucher. Around East Lawrence.
Takeaways for me on this is Lawrence. And I think that I'm talking about, but there's another issue is the closest we get is health, safety. What is it? Safe. Yeah, but there is no mention of this. And I'm going. So anyway, I think part of our responsibility as a board, as there becomes more attention to revising or modifying, is we need to focus more on this.
If I could jump in there, I would say, but the city most definitely provides opportunities for good health.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Okay, Dan, thank you very much.
Thanks for having
me. Yeah. And let's open our eyes.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, next, an update on Skateboard Park.
Roger, are you able to pull that? No. Just a second here. Switch it back to the lefty. Let's think down here. Is this what you wanted?
Yeah, if you can just pass the mouse down.
What?
I said there was, Mackenzie Clark was in the waiting room.
Okay.
Oh, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Pass down the mouse. Or mics, or me. Just a really quick update on the skating and then the Vert ramp. So this is the commission agenda item that was last August. It's put in. So this is not what we're buying. We're buying this ramp. This ramp is on site at our shop. So we anticipate installation going late April, early May. So a contractor will come in and put it out. So this is the facility will offer. Let me show you where it's at. So this is the current skate park is here. So the ramp will go here. If you go over there, the concrete pad's already poured. So we're basically ready to go. We're just waiting for the installer to get on site to put it in. So that's one development. The second development is we have a $250,000 CIP item for this year to update the rest of the skate park here. So you can kind of see the outline of, well, this is not quite complete. So this piece, this triangle has already been completed last year. So what the $250,000 will do is complete this, as well as look at light upgrades and lights over here. So that will be happening. We're going to city commission next week, next Tuesday, for request a design build option, which that allows us to hire companies that are specializing in building skate parks, as opposed to us writing specs that Joe contractor bids on. So it's a better way to deliver this type of thing. That way we can look at just what have you done with skate parks and pick the vendor that way. So that's the update. That project, I'm going to guess, is going to be a fall project if we're lucky. Because once we figure out who we want to work with, they'll have to do design, we'll have to accept the design, and then we'll have to get into their list of when can I be in Lawrence, Kansas. So a lot of it will depend because there's not that many contractors. A lot of it depend on where they're at in the United States building other skate parks. So we hope to do it this year. It may roll into next year. That's kind of an update.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
Yeah, I have an update a little bit on the ramp, the G ramps, the company. They're in LA this week. And then after they're done with that job, they're coming to Lawrence.
Okay.
So we should have like an ETA on like exactly when they're going to put the ramp in, and probably within, the next week or something like that.
Good.
And then Justin told me we've got all the donor bricks and everything. So those are going to go in when they're done building the ramp. So yeah, hopefully this should be pretty soon.
Great.
I have a quick question about Centennial Park. What's the big limestone circle?
Up on the corner of 9th,
Mm-hmm.
it's a disc golf basket location. So different organizations. So we have disc golf. So you can see here how this and currently over here, but it was getting a little too close to the vert ramp. So the one up at the corner is just an alternate location for one of their baskets. The group has kind of been doing all that work. We basically supply the materials and then they put the things in. But to be honest, that one's kind of lasted too long and hasn't really developed quick enough. So we get quite a few questions / comments on what's going on and why isn't it done yet. So,
I remember when we were talking about the skate park earlier, how we said this would be pretty unusual for our area and so on. And I think the more we can make of this, the more it fits with the unmistakable identity piece, and we really push it that way. I think we can bring attention to it.
It will be a regional attraction.
Oh yeah, that's going to be the only public vert ramp within a 500-mile radius.
Sam, what you obviously are a skater.
You missed his introduction last time.
All right.
Yeah, but it's the only public vert ramp within 500-mile radius. I'm sure there's some private ones around. But I think the closest you can really get to like skating something like that is going up to Des Moines, the new park that they built a couple years back. But yeah.
So are there like tournaments or?
I mean, like there's a few vert contests. Vert's a little bit like not the majority of people skate that because it's pretty intense. But like there are like contests and stuff like that. I think probably what we're at least trying to do with River Skate Shop and Lawrence Skaters Association is get like a demo, which would just be like some professional skateboarders who skate vert ramps like that will come to town, and they'll probably bring in some people from out of town and stuff like that. So that would probably be kind of a bigger attraction than like a contest, but probably more like demos and stuff like that.
And I will say, the safety factor is a big one. We've had discussions on that. You have to wear helmets. It's unmonitored. Yeah, we've talked with the River Rat Skate Shop and the LSA group. We will probably do a helmet event out there when this is in place, like we do for the bicycles and the safety and the fire department. This is one thing that can really get somebody injured if they're not wearing the proper need to do that.
The good thing is that even though there's stigma with like wearing helmets when you're just skating in a regular skate park, I would like 95% of people that skate vert are padded up. So I don't think that necessarily be a problem because most people realize that it's pretty high risk. So I know there's a little bit of concern with that within the skateboarding community in general, but for skating like bigger transition stuff like this, hopefully that shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Thank you, sir.
if you look at the cross section here, you can kind of see how steep it is. So this obviously is not a beginner ramp. So the kids will probably get broken a little more over on the concrete ramps before they launched into this, but
Anyway, I have a question too.
sure.
So just making sure with disc golf, it's all copacetic right now and everything with the park moving and whatnot. It's just making sure.
Meeting last summer.
Yeah,
With the combined groups.
Okay, great.
All right. This one is here.
Yeah.
So this hasn't happened yet, but here kind of with, so we talked about making that an official tee.
It's such an active park, so making sure both sports can really find each other, find space for one another is important.
We're not stepping on each other's toes, and I think we came to a pretty good mutual agreement.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And then honestly, in thinking about the strategic plan with biking, skateboard should probably be a part of that too. Do we have skateboard friendly neighborhoods, like any form of transportation that isn't just a car? So keep that in mind, I think.
Skateboard lanes.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
I plan for skateboard.
Yeah, you should.
Oh, in some of the documents we've talked about, a definition of wheeled devices.
Yeah.
Which includes roller skate or rollerblades.
Okay, here's the term. I'll probably get in trouble, Mark. You slap my head.
Oh, no.
A destination park, and a destination is a place where people can come from there.
Yes.
I want to go to Lawrence, Kansas and go to Centennial Park, and you look at all the user groups, and it's definitely a regional attraction. I go out there to skate ramps and the park more than I do, but you'll find people from Olathe and Overland Park and Topeka and other parts of this area go, I heard Lawrence has a great skate park. That trip here, it's a great location off of I-70, and then we have bicycle races to go around that. And so when we get some folks, sometimes they'll ask for other uses in that park, and we're almost cramped up too much.
Oh, we could have a day of games. That would be cool. All kinds of games.
Kansas.
Is there going to be a grand opening or?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is set something up with some professionals to do a demo and a grand opening thing and just have a little event. We're kind of working on that. We got some stuff in motion, but waiting to finalize it.
Maybe need some bands. Sing some songs.
We have that this kind of maintenance. And
Sure. So last week's city commission meeting, Jake Baldwin of the MSO and I presented to the city commission on what as the K-10 corridor develops. So basically Iowa over 4 lanes, and then as the exits and entrances into the highway. So the question was, what level of participation do we want to have in the Iowa, where we enter off 6th Street, the 27th Street exit down to the sports complexes. Clinton Parkway is a huge entrance. So yeah, there's two options, actually 3. One is do zero landscaping. So KDOT puts in the road and we don't worry about it. The extended option was a $4.3 million option that was going to be completely, they do it all. They'll put in pavers around the islands, they'll extend the islands, they'll put the trees in, they'll do the planting. Then the option that we asked the commission to consider was a $1.3 million option, which basically KDOT would do all the hardscape. So if you go to West 6th Street, you'll see the islands out there. It comes in, then it has brick nose out here, and then brick around, and then the trees come down the middle. So that's the concept we're going with, like on Iowa Street. So that we want them to build the hardscape. So they do the curbs, the brick, the extended medians, and then we come in and do the green. So anything we can do, trees, flowers, whatever we want to do faster, cheaper than they can do. In this, there's 4 different roundabouts. There's 3 on Clinton Parkway, 1 over by the sports complex. The exit at 27th Street and Wakarusa is going to be a fairly major entrance for us because it's going right into the park. So you'll come off the highway, you'll go under the highway, and you go directly into the YSC complexes. So we want to make sure we're looking pretty good there. But again, even Wakarusa itself is going to be rebuilt all the way up to Clinton Parkway. So we'll want to have a pretty nice looking entrance from Clinton Parkway coming all the way down into our sports complex. So the city commission approved the $1.3 million concept. So what we need to do is go back into the CIP and put a project in to put the greenscape in, because otherwise there'll be no plants out there. But the roundabouts have to have some type of planning because that's how they're designed, so that you don't see through the roundabouts. You basically see your plants and you go around them. But anyway, that's what was approved. So that's pretty infant stages, but we needed to get a dollar figure to KDOT as they finished their design concept. They wanted to know what did we want in the project.
Well, we need to look at this conceptually though. And, I mean, gateways means more to me than landscaping. I mean, when you go, how many cities have you gone to and you enter the city and there's
a % for art.
The art.
Yeah.
So you're getting about ready where we're going to transition.
Let's talk about gateways, Derek.
So we'll take it. So that was kind of the intro, and we've been with Chase. No, you're on track. You're just a little bit ahead of me. So Porter's out with his kid enjoying spring break this week. I think his daughter is 6, and Lindsay joined us today, and her daughter is 12, I think. So I'll get ahead, not if I'm right or wrong. Oh, 10. I'm aging her too fast. But we've had a discussion a little bit when John on that, because we're going to get real busy, it sounds like, in April. But that would be part of the concept of what should we be looking at as gateways, probably under the arts piece of this. Going to your point on the 2%, that's something that Porter and I know the commission has had some different commissioners have talked to us about. How can we be consistent? What is the ordinance? It's not an ordinance, it's a resolution. Porter's been looking at taking 2% of which capital projects. So he's started that process, and it might be $750,000 to who knows what. Helps identify and maybe solidify what that resolution ought to be so we can be more consistent with application. What is a CIP for $750,000? Can we do a nice entrance gateway at the east side of Lawrence where SLT and 23rd Street split, which there ought to be something, especially with Panasonic development, and something out where there's going to be the new diamond at 6 in the SLT, which isn't a bridge new, it's just a diamond. That will be part of the discussion, but I think we're going to get into it really quick.
So we could have a statue of a skateboarder.
Yeah.
MSO, some of the engineers cringe when they hear city of fountains or even water objects. But I kind of like that idea. Let's do something different.
I might be backing a little bit on the landscape planning. I'd love to see us look at kind of native plants and do some more water-wise that really is possible rather than they're going to require a lot of watering and attention and things like that. And we definitely have the resources in this community of professionals who can advise on that sort of thing. So is that possible?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we kind of wanted to pull it out of KDOT's recommendation. So by doing that, we have a chance to talk about this for a year or two before we implement. So obviously we're in fairly high visibility areas, but it's also highway speed. So when we look at design, we'll look at how we want to do that. The biggest thing is we have to look at traffic patterns, make sure we have visibility so we can't put 6 foot tall grasses at the corners. Right. But yeah, there's a lot of things we can do. We aren't envisioning irrigated envisioning getting water to the sites so that when we try to establish plants, we have some way to keep. But yeah, I think we have an opportunity to do a little bit of anything we want to.
Okay, great. So it's getting kind of late, so let's see if we can move along. Parks and Rec update?
Parks update.
Parks update.
That's for the mouse again. Roger can help me.
Yeah.
Go ahead and key it up and then I'll go.
Okay. What's that, huh? You know how to share. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Don't hit the red button.
Okay, now we're looking. What I wanted to do last time we talked about the CIP was in the middle of development, so I wanted to kind of report back what we had talked about. It's kind of giving an overview of what we're proposing. So this is 2023. So these are projects that are moving now. I highlighted a couple because the sports complex is kind of our key thing going into this year. So we're looking at turf and lights out there, but we also have a lot of trail projects that are in the works. As we go into 24, this has kind of been a reshuffle of the deck. So what we try to do is not develop too many new projects, but go in and say, okay, is this really 24 project, and then update the dollars. So this one, we looked at the sports complex. So we're doing quite a bit with lights and that turf on soccer and football. This one does baseball infields. This is the continuation of the $3 million up here. So that finishes that project. Looking at trying to improve the parking lots. Then I color coded some of these just so you can kind of see where they go together. But we're looking at these as a couple of park projects, replacing some restrooms, and then getting into playgrounds. So we're targeting Dad Perry for next year and also Lions. Restrooms, kind of sad to say, I put these restrooms in when I first got here and they're all starting to fail a little bit. Not sure what that's going on with that, but it's been 25 years almost. So they've had. This one is our biggest project that we're going to anticipate in the next 4 or 5 years. Is starting to look at the outdoor aquatic center. What do we want to do with it? We honestly pushed this back. It was supposed to happen in 25. But what we want to do is a public engagement next year, and then define what we want to do, and then start to look at finishing design in 25 and maybe start construction. But the biggest part of construction will be down here in 26. So a lot of this is thinking about what do we want to do. I mean, this number could go to $15 million if we dream big, and when the city commission thinks that's where we want to go. This one is a fairly conservative number for an aquatic center. So we've looked at some of the newer ones in Kansas City, and they're just really amazing, but they have a really amazing price tag too. So other highlight items, community building, we have a project to enhance the entrance to the building. We really aren't ADA accessible. We're accessible from the back elevator, but we aren't accessible because our staff is at the front door. So people can come in the building, but we can't see them. So it's trying to anticipate fixing that. The rest of these, you know, there's a series of trail projects. So we're pushing the Lawrence Loop all the way through. A lot of those come together. South Park wading pool is one. So this is kind of our splash pad sequencing. So we're looking at trying to get something going here, replace the wading pool, make it a splash pad. So we wouldn't have to staff it. We wouldn't have to clean water. It'd just be modernizing the facility. This one at Eagle Bend, it's kind of one that's not a high frills, but it's kind of necessary. We have some spots that hold water and basically affect play. So when we get a heavy rain, we have to close the course sometimes because the water's not draining. And then the driving range is a really bad spot where we have to close it, not use it for, you know, weeks at a time because the water doesn't drain off of it properly. So it's one of those things that will never get fixed unless we fix it. And it'll just always be that way. What else highlights? We have a couple of shop projects. So these are hard because they don't help the public much. It's more staff oriented. But like the cemetery, And the Memorial Park Cemetery shops are not in good shape, very, very old. They're not ADA accessible. There's a lot of things that we're just going to have to address with them sooner or later. Pushing out here to 27, we start looking at land acquisition and trying to dedicate some money towards that. Then we also start looking at some of the downtown areas, trying to start doing some things down there. The dog park, this is one we kind of just keep rolling along and saying, hey, we really need another dog park, and trying to get funding. This is a little bit of a dream indoor turf facility, but both of our soccer groups are kind of pushing on that. And one of them is indicating there may be some private funding that could go towards this. So we're going to stick it on here with the, can do it, show us. And, you know, they're saying there's potential for high dollar sponsors that would put their name on it for 10 years and basically pay for that. That would be great, but we aren't far enough along to buy that concept yet. But we want to leave it as an option, because if they truly can't do that, then it would be a great facility for the city. The spray glass, so again, targeting splash pads around the city, trying to spread them out a little bit. John Taylor Park is a new project. This is the North Lawrence folks are saying we really need a restroom at John Taylor, and they'd like to update the courts over there. This is a brand new project that MSO just took to multimodal task force. This is a crossing at Clinton Parkway where the trail crosses and will be crossing multiple traffics. This is a grade separated crossing. That one's a little more futuristic dream, but it's one that we've stuck on. Now, what's happening here are these are unfunded projects that were on varying CIPs that got left. So we didn't pull them back up. So you can see there was more land acquisition. So a lot of this is pulling projects back up and saying this is ones we want to do. Now, something like this, where we have this is the bridge concept that goes, the trail that goes around the powerhouse over there. That can come back up if there's grants available. So just because it's down here doesn't mean it's a dead project. It's ones that are going to need some type of additional funding to pull up. Because this one was 7 million and a 10 million. Anyway, that's kind of the blow through fast. I don't know if you have questions or comments or things you'd like to further talk about.
When does the city just finalize the improvements budget?
It'll be June-ish. So I have to have these submitted now. Then it goes through the scoring system.
Okay.
And then we kind of get that first, here's what it looks like based on the scores, because they always have a cut line. So if you're below this many points, you don't get it. And then that goes to the commission for discussion.
Okay.
Approval goes with the budget.
Okay, how about we?
I was just gonna say, it's interesting to see citizen request item. Electric street sweeper.
That was something that was funded. It was
it was funded.
Approved
Okay.
last year.
Okay.
There's some of this that may get altered a little bit.
Patrick, I think I have a question and thought. Since obviously we just heard from Dan Partridge, I'm curious, as we see these projects get funded, where's the east side? And make sure we always are thinking about that when it comes to equity.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
I think that's North Lawrence to east side.
Yeah, North Lawrence.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no grocery store, no.
And maybe I'm on the west side too much, but I would really like to see a splash pad out there sooner rather than later, because we'll have one at Rose Creek, we'll have one at Lyons, and then we'll have one at South Park. Yeah, what do we got for the folks on the west side of town?
We actually have way more parks on the east side than we do west side. And honestly, we have a rec center there. We have a splash pad over there. So we always think that way first. But we got to always get to the other side too, because we can't just, everything's east. So it's.
Yeah, but we probably have more swimming pools on the west side of town than the east side of town.
Well, if you're thinking from a health perspective.
Yeah, I just feel like, I think you explained what my statement question was.
Yeah.
Like, so you start at the east side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I think in terms of equity in Parks and Rec, that is the greatest thing we can give to the community is Parks and Rec always being there for everyone in our community.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go on to the recreation.
Okay, hi.
Wait a minute, hold on just a second, Lindsay.
Okay.
Concerns of the E.
Missed it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I needed pre.
Over concerns, board member items of interest. Do we have any of those?
I've got one. I know we talked to y'all about the getting Edgewood Park bathroom. I didn't know if there was any update on that. Nick, going to be. He's pretty sure that the Osage Nation, as like a group, will request an archaeological survey before dig any water lines or plumbing, and I'm not sure we need to get like a do a survey for that, so that doesn't throw a wrench in the process, you know. So we're not out there trying to do something and they're like, hey, you need to this land first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so where we're at on that is the environmental assessment has to be done before we can move forward with CDBG funds. Next step, so you're tracking with where we're going.
Sounds good.
Just the information there's that have been charged with looking at advisory boards and roles, responsibilities, and that kind of thing. So that's in process right now. Okay.
I had a question. I spoke about baseball diamonds. So the fields in the future, YSC. Because isn't it also happening at Holcomb?
I don't know that we've thought that far ahead.
Okay. I just want to put in, because there's obviously a kickball league. So it's really challenging if we're only put into 3 spaces and 3 fields. Mm-hmm. And then I know that on Friday nights, it's been like there's been the biggest amount of kickball teams that have been playing on Friday nights also. So, maybe keep that in mind, that if kickball is proving to be something that works and still fits in the community plan, that gets thought through too.
Okay.
I had just, Lindsay, you may talk about the parade, but thanks for the invitation to us to be in a float. I was sick. My husband said, well, what would you ask? Well, what about a green Parks and Rec shirt? So I was just wondering, do we sell merch? I think people might like. I know I've seen you guys in hoodies and all sorts of cute things, but that was just throwing it out there as another way we can maybe make money.
And then I think with the new city brand that's coming, we'll be looking at that from a city's perspective, more so than just Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
Okay, Lindsay, I think it's your turn.
All right, Lindsay Hart, Assistant Director. I can start with that. So yes, we are participating in the St. Patrick's Day Parade as a department. And so we will be out there on Friday. And if any of you board members would like to join us, just let me know. We're going to have 2 floats, which is the same that we did last year. And I know a few of our commissioners will be joining us. And then in the second float, we're going to have our spring break camp kids. And then we're also going to be handing out 1,000 tree seedlings this year. So last year we had 500 and I think we ran out after the first block. And so we've doubled the amount. We're going to try to space it out a little bit better, but I know those were a huge hit and it was really fun for staff to hand those out. So we will be there. And again, if anybody wants to join us, please let me know. We'd be happy to have you. I think it's going to be a little chilly this year. I'm not sure. So it looks like we're going to be in coats, unfortunately, but we will be there. A few other things I just wanted to mention. Roger has been doing a great job of keeping us updated on our enrollment numbers each month. And I kind of wanted to continue to share that with the board as we get those in. So for February, our enrollments were up quite a bit compared to last year. So in 2022, at this time, we had 1,168 enrollments. And this year, at the same time, we have 2,330 135. And so just looking at revenue again, which is, going to be very important to us this year. We were at about 151,000 last year, and this year we're already at 242,000. So we're looking really good. We're feeling great about our enrollment and participation. And so anyway, that's going really well. And thank you, Roger, for providing us with those updates. I also wanted to talk about sponsorships. As I mentioned last month, we have a staff task force that we created, and we're going to be meeting monthly. And so we've already had 2 meetings, and this group is just on a roll and really excited. And we have a lot of ideas. And so we're all going in 10 different directions and trying to do what we can to get some things moving. But we have already updated our registration form and the pricing for field banners. And we already have some sponsors interested. And so we're getting them lined up. So you'll see new banners on our fields this summer. Spring, actually. I think we're going to have some here pretty. We're getting ready to update the Eagle Bend Golf Course sponsorship opportunities, which we had done in the past for whole sponsors and the scorecards and things like that. So we're getting that, all of those amendments, and we'll be getting those passed out and hopefully securing some new sponsors for that as well. I also wanted to, just in response to Mr. Greason earlier during public comment, mentioned that he got a coupon from Dick's Sporting Goods. We actually do have a sponsorship through Dick's, and so we have secured that. We have an agreement with them. We do get cash and kind donations as days and coupons for our participants. So I did just want to clarify that we're definitely not just doing free promotions for them. They are a sponsor and a partner with us. And so we'll be continuing to do that and build on that as we go through the year. Yeah, that is all I have. Unless anybody has any questions.
Lindsay, I just want to commend who is ever using their imagination to come up with the classes that are being offered. I just, I love to go down and look, see the different classes. And, oh my gosh.
And credit to Lindsay's staff and the young programmers and the new body, the recreational experts and professionals that have the creative minds. I'm thinking of Landon Knoll and Molly and Justin Deaver, and we've got some great people at the lowest levels that are really excited and do great things.
Well, it's paying off, I guess, but I love to see the variety. It's just amazing.
Thank you. I will be sure and pass that on. Yeah, we do have a great staff. I appreciate hearing that.
Thank you.
And I just want to add 2 things. One, I've been in LaBlasse Splash this session, the funnest class. If you want to do water aerobics. But also, as a member of the Hats Parade Committee, thanks for being in the parade, but also there's a big push, your mind floats to save some of your piece for North Lawrence.
We do have a plan. We actually have talked about that. We exit 6th Street. But we're going to have a couple of our guys are going to have some gators driving, kind of carrying the trees. And so we already have a bridge and they will hit the other side. So we already have been requested to do that and have a plan.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, Lindsay? Okay, let's move on to cultural arts and events update.
Anything?
He did not.
Okay.
Or he did.
Don't have any report.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have some things that kind of go into the sum of that. And March Madness, Rock Chalk Jayhawks were here. We've been meeting with KU, with large groups of staff, small groups of staff as we prepare for the championship parade, April 8th, and it will be in the afternoon, and they're looking at deconflicting.
Got that big.
Oh, okay, gotcha. We are just purely in the planning what if. But we have to even big, you know, we're number one seed and.
You gotta manifest it.
KU out of it, but what do we do the plan? And so last year, looking at what we did, we were did the Final Four downtown, and we were doing bouncy houses and street events and with South. And next week, the what if, some plans on just some rough sketches with, I think Michael Logan is heading up. To get to that far, what do we do? How do we plan street events so we can be ahead of the ball game? We had a public meeting with the group on Water Tower Park. I don't know if you want to discuss that, or I can a little bit. I thought we had 30 some people there, I think. It's a great turnout. It's some great ideas, and there'll be some more meetings coming, but we're excited about getting some stuff up there, and every neighborhood is unique. Yeah.
Is that about input for what will be in the park?
The amenities and
Right.
Yes.
Because it's been decided.
Can't do much with the water.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's somebody had mentioned, yes, random can we get part of the water tower? I have no idea. I'm thinking, okay, fundraiser. But we'll see. Yeah.
Zip line. Yeah. Yeah. We'll get part of the old Kansas City Airport and part of the old water tower.
But I was really impressed by how well that meeting went, and it was nice to listen to the folks that live up in the Hillcrest and the West Hills neighborhood, and to see that we had a great representation there. Grover Barn, a quick update on talking with Watkins. We had some structural concerns that were identified, and our MSO is getting that fixed. So hopefully into April, Grover Barn be open to the public again. I know the Guardians of Grover Barn have some events scheduled for the Underground Railroad. So excited to get that going again. North Lawrence Improvement Association, Ted Boyle. I haven't shared out a survey, and I can share out the survey. I've talked to Ted a few times and suggested, why don't you come and talk to the board possibly in May? I need to hear from them. We hear a lot of the requests for John Taylor Park, Lions Park concerns in those parks. And he has also emailed some of the surveys. It was a different survey, I think, in some respects, all the city commissioners. So at some point, if you want me to send it out, I can send it out. And then if we can get them on the schedule for a later advisory board discussion, we can do that. The comp plan I'd mentioned, it is on the city commission, I'm pretty sure on March 21st. So we'll have that finally approved. Confluence had sent some information today. They are ready and wanting to get rolling. Our next advisory board meeting is April 10th, I think. They're wanting to do in-person meetings with stakeholders April 10th to 12th. I don't know what that's going to look like. They Confluence.
The consultant
for the Parks and Rec.
Chosen for the Parks and Rec plan.
Right.
So waiting for the
And cultural arts too. That's coming up as well.
So we did some revisions. We wanted to make sure that the arts piece was well represented. They expanded the scope. They've got somebody with expertise on there. So this will be a really cool plan.
One of the things, and I can just hop in here. What we did the last time, Marilyn, I think you were part of that plan. We had several meetings with, I think we had 17, if I remember correctly, 17 meetings with different individuals from different stakeholder groups. So each one of the advisory board members would be at a meeting, through whatever fits their schedule. I don't know what they're going to plan on doing or not. That's one of the discussions we're going to have going forward. I know Porter is going to be probably the lead from that side of things. But yeah, be looking for providing input. You will have input into the plan as a stakeholder.
And is that replacing the master plan? Okay.
Yeah, it'd be a brand new master plan incorporating arts and culture. A lot of data. I think you've been through the last one. I have not. And I'm looking at the request. We've got a lot of data that gathers. So next week after spring break, we'll get our first meeting together as staff, start collecting the data they're requesting. Some of the stakeholders that they mentioned, city staff, members of the commission, advisory board, Cultural Arts Commission, the art community, particularly invested in the city. So I don't even know how they can do that many interviews, but if you block your calendar, kind of keep some time open on that April 10th through 12th, and I'll see if what he's looking for, or they're looking for, I should say, on consultations and interviews. But they have a huge list of stakeholders, so I'm excited to go over this, and then they'll be looking for thoughts, concerns, and on the community. So more to follow. I think there's anything else on that.
Eric, I would love for the advisory board to have an outline of what their process is going to look like. Instead of us just being called to one little piece, like what is the overall process?
And literally, I just got this, and I had questions for him going, okay, so how do you get a steering committee? Do you grab the data and then do you request? I don't know.
Darren, too, it's a little confusing for me when I look at the strategic plan and the unmistakable identity, and then go down from the progress indicators to the strategies. The strategies are all, so many of them are Parks and Rec strategies that involve Parks and Rec. So when we think about a comprehensive plan, we might, I don't know, but we might want to keep in mind, like some of these strategies, this is the city's comprehensive plan, right? So here's a strategy. Market Lawrence as a destination for Parks and Rec, as well as community and cultural events. Another one, enhance parks and park amenities and recreation opportunities to meet the need of a growing city. Invest in green infrastructure, blah, 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 blah.
Go down to KPIs or UIs 4, 5, and 6. And does that touch more into the arts and culture?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's interesting, the balance. And I think your point is very valid, and that needs to be revised on the strategies. When we look at our, which is how satisfied are you with parks and recreation system? So how do I tie somebody that is servicing our parks and emptying and collecting the trash every day? How do they tie to the strategic plan? And so that's one of the KPIs. I think we need to broaden that down a little more. At the same time, to your point on marketing Lawrence, yes, we need to be working as an arts destination too. So that's it.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, if we do the, thinking comprehensive, it would help if we were sensitive to some of these strategies that have already been identified.
Do we have their presentation that they presented to us that we could send out to the board members as a PDF? Just so they kind of, to Marilyn's point, be scope of.
Yeah.
And then the RFP too.
We can send out
that stuff to you folks, so you'll have that.
Yeah, that we can get up. That's a good point, because that was all on city commission meeting.
I'm out. I'll send it Wednesday once I collect it from everybody, if that's okay. Otherwise, Derek can send it to you if you put it all together tomorrow, and you remember to.
Yeah. Ping me and I'll remember. To your point too, we do meetings with the Unmistakable Identity Group. We're reviewing the key performance indicators and all that every other Thursday. It was supposed to be this March 17th. We pushed it to next Thursday. If you would like to come, I'd love to have your input. And that would be a good discussion item. We go to the city commission again probably about the first week of May, I'm thinking, provide an update. And that's where I'm thinking too, just kind of brainstorming. That might be a good meeting for the city commission.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, in the past, done with the other folks that gone presented to the city commission.
It's out of Kansas City. Well, it's out of but they have an office in Kansas City.
Yeah, we're dealing with in Kansas City. Then Younger and Rose is also involved. It's their national.
In Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And then
the artist, I'm not for sure where she's out.
Design Local. I say she's out of Ohio, maybe. She's done.
I think so. I think you're right.
Amanda Golden is the consultant on the team for the arts. Any questions?
This is Val Renault, and this is kind of a snide thing to say, but during all of the school board stuff, I kept thinking, where's unmistakably Lawrence in this? You know, I kept thinking of how we talk about it in here, but when they're talking about closing schools, I know, you know, there's money, but again, it comes back to neighborhoods and, you know, kids being able to walk. So I don't know.
Well, the bigger issue is the city involved at all in those discussions? And I don't.
It doesn't seem like they're separate. So that doesn't really belong here, but I just kept trying to find a frame for that when I was trying to write a letter to the school board, you know, find a frame from here.
The empty schools are going to make new community centers.
Well, that'll be good.
Are you making that up? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just checking, you know, you don't know. Wait,
Since we're still paying for the renovation.
I mean, we got to think about repurposing, you know, we might as well be it. Okay, anything else? Okay, let's have a motion to adjourn then.
Marilyn Hall, I move we adjourn.
Jackie Becker, second.
Okay, moved and seconded to adjourn. Any, all those in favor? Raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, thank you. See you all next time.
Thanks, John.
April. Thank you.
Exciting.
If these